Welcome to the mentions and sentiment analysis portion of the Digital Reputation Suite. If you're running a campaign for a client that has a corresponding Digital Reputation Suite enabled, you'll enter into the client project. From the left-hand navigation, go to Digital Reputation, and then navigate to Visibility and Reviews. From here, you would land on the overview, which would look like this, and you're going to have a mentions overview. What the mentions overview is, it is an analysis of web pages online that contain particular keywords related to the client's company, such as their company name, company nickname, or other search terms that you would deem to be associated close enough with the client to be able to say, okay, well, if these words were found on that web page, this must be about my client. And then that we have a system that will automatically analyze that web page content to figure out what % positive, neutral, or negative that web page content is. So this will be crawled up to twice a week for mentions, and on the overview, it's going to give you a simple sentiment analysis. And then you can click here to see more about the mentions. So whatever it's going to show you the mentions, it will break down everything from a web page, whether or if it's a web page or a video page. And then it's going to show you if that content was neutral, somewhat positive, very positive, or negative. Now, if you wanted to update the content that was found from being, for example, neutral to somewhat positive because you felt like globally it should be updated that way, you can select the different sentiment analysis, for example, somewhat positive, and select to update that to, for example, very positive, and change sentiment. So, because sentiment analysis is not 100% accurate all the time. So you might want to come in here if you wanted to and change things from being neutral to somewhat positive, or change them from being negative to neutral. So, because it's not 100% accurate, but most of the time it is. I mean, you can imagine the type of words that we'd be looking for to understand if something is negative or not. You can also bookmark the particular web pages, tag it as my content, or mark it as not relevant anymore. And once you mark it as not relevant, it will disappear and not be counted any longer. So one of the most powerful things about the mentions or sentiment analysis for you should be that the majority of this content that's going to come up, unless you have a really popular client, is probably going to be things that you published for them. For example, a guest blog post, a Pinterest post, a YouTube video, a new directory listing. So this is a fantastic way to show them on a graphical format, even the new content being published for them, the sentiment around that content, instead of just a typical work report. So mentions and sentiment analysis is a fantastic way of showing their brand expansion online through efforts typically geared towards SEO. Now, I do want to mention that there are some settings to mentions. So if you want to go to Edit Mention Settings in a separate tutorial, we'll go over this further. But this is where you go to add the keywords that will be searched for to understand if that web page should be included in mentions for your client. So hopefully whenever it comes time to you doing client consultations, even to go over their project on a monthly basis, you remember the sentiment analysis, and you can bring it up to wow your client about all the great content that's being published to increase their brand recognition and brand sentiment online.